Well, tomorrow is the biggest day of this year's primary campaign. 16 states, including voters right here in California, will head to the polls. The day has been dubbed, you know it, Super Tuesday. Joining us now is CBS News Director of Elections and Surveys, Anthony Salvanto. Hello, Anthony. Thanks so much for joining us.
Hey, Amy, good to talk to you.
Well, let's take a look at the head-to-head race between President Biden and former President Donald Trump. In general, what is the state of the race going into Super Tuesday?
Very simply, it is this. Donald Trump, national matchup against Joe Biden. He's got a 4-point lead. It's actually his largest lead in our polling so far. And a big thing driving that, Amy, is the economy. People have said it's not good. It's been slowly improving. And yet, voters tell us that they remember their recollection of the economy during the Trump years as being good. 2/3 say that. So compared to now, it's got a big advantage, that memory, and that's helping boost the former president, Amy.
But Anthony, if the economy is improving now, why isn't that helping President Biden?
Well, the other reason for this is not just that memory of the way people recall the economy under Donald Trump, but what they think might happen to prices if either gets elected. And what's happened is more people tell us they think prices will go up under Joe Biden. They think they might stay even or go down under Donald Trump. A lot of Republicans driving that view, too. So what's happened is in the last couple of years, those Biden policies have gotten associated in the public mind with inflation. And that's something that the Biden campaign, I think we watch to see if they can turn around, Amy.
Well, how much of a factor are Mr. Trump's legal issues, as well as this morning's Supreme Court ruling, playing into these elections?
Well, that's so important because it really defines the vote here. Take a look at this. You have just under half of Americans that think that the former president tried to stay in office and do so by illegal or unconstitutional means. These folks are voting in big numbers for Joe Biden. So that's a big part of his side of this race. But for the folks who don't think he tried to stay, who don't think he was either planning to leave or using illegal processes to do that, they are ready to return the former president to office. So it's that big split. It's that definition in what people think of those legal issues that really underpins a lot of this race.
Well, abortion and more recently in vitro fertilization have really been hot button political issues. Are those issues going to sway voters, do you think?
Oh, they sure are. Let me show you this. First of all, a big majority of Americans tell us they think IVF ought to be legal. So with that kind of number, you can expect that's going to stay top of mind for voters. And then the other part of this, though, is this majority who think that on balance, the overturn of Roe v. Wade has been bad for the country. The difference here is whether or not the Biden campaign can convince more of these folks, the ones who think it was bad for the country, to associate that with Donald Trump. And right now, not all of them do. And so that's another dynamic to watch to see if the Biden campaign can make headway there, Amy.
And certainly plenty of attention on the crisis at the southern border and immigration. So how will that play into the race? Well,
right now, you've got a big difference between what people see as being able to affect the number of migrants trying to cross the border. So have a look at this. You've got Joe Biden's policies in the public mind. Half of people think that his policies would increase the number of migrants, but you've got this big number here at 72% who think that Donald Trump's policies would decrease the number of migrants. So that's an advantage for Trump on that issue, and it's an issue that's important because more and more people have been telling us in the polling that they see the border as a crisis, Amy.
All right, Anthony, thank you. CBS News Director of Elections and Surveys, Anthony Salvanto. We really appreciate your time and your insight.